Straw Hut Media.
Welcome to Release Date Rewind, a podcast that celebrates milestone anniversaries in film. Hallo! That's my Austrian-German accent for this episode. I don't know how I did. Hopefully decent. I'm your host, Mark J. Parker, a film lover and filmmaker, and thank you so much for checking out my show on the Straw Hut Media Network wherever you get your pods or watching on YouTube. I have the perfect movie to share with you for this holiday. Richard Linklater's beloved romance talkie Before Sunrise, which just celebrated its 30th anniversary and has a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. So fresh. Linklater was inspired to make this movie after he met a random young woman named Amy in a toy shop in Philadelphia, where I'm from, in the fall of 1989, which led them to walk around together all night long. Although that young woman has since passed away, her memory definitely lives on in this great Before trilogy. So grab your friends, wear your 90s grungy attire, and if you'd like to watch or rewatch this movie before listening, it doesn't seem to be streaming anywhere with a subscription currently in the US, womp womp, but you can borrow it from your library, you can rent it, or you can find it on some random site. All right, American boys and French ladies, let's get off this train and take a stroll, because it's time to rewind. All right, everybody, I am so excited to have this guest on. We've been Instagram friends for a while. He is a talented artist, a great-looking man. If you're watching on YouTube, I mean, look at this guy. And this is also exciting because we're talking about an international movie, right, that takes place in, a beautiful country. And it's my first international guest, everybody. We are on different time zones. It's the morning for me. I just got up a little bit ago. He's going into the evening, basically late afternoon. Everybody, welcome from Bulgaria. Oh my gosh, Todor Iliev. Hello, Todor. Thanks for coming.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having me. I don't know if I can express how exciting this is. I've always
Yeah?
been listening to your podcast and to other movie podcasts, and it's like a constant thing which I do while I'm cleaning, taking the dog out, anything that requires for me to use my hands and to have my consciousness free, so I can just listen to stuff. And it's either books or podcasts, and it's
Yep.
super exciting. But this is also the first time when I had to go through the whole thing where you watch something because you need to comment on it. So you take lots of notes and you make a research on the movie, and in my case on what was happening in the world at that time, because it was 30 years ago.
Right.
And I think it hurt the movie a little bit, quite a bit, to be
Interesting.
honest.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I don't think movies were meant to be seen under microscope and under scrutiny. Um, but yeah, that's what happened with this one.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, we are going to nerd out everybody about Before Sunrise.
Oh,
And like I said, this is so cool, Todor, because like I feel like I'm the Jesse, I'm the American, and you're like Celine. Where is she from? She lives in Paris. She's from Paris. She's French. You're not French.
she's
But
French.
okay, you
No.
need to tell me. I've never been to Bulgaria. Like, amazing. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, you grew up there, you've been there your whole life?
So yeah, it's nothing like France. Let's start there. And Celine
Yeah.
is from France. I'm from
Yeah.
Bulgaria. I grew up here in Bulgaria. Yes. Currently, I'm living in the capital. This is where I graduated from, and I
Cool.
stayed here to work and live. I used to live in the States for a while
Oh, yeah.
in New York. Yeah, for maybe a little bit less than a year. I also think I
Okay.
spent like 3 months in New Jersey or something.
Oh, where in New
Yeah.
Jersey? That's where I'm from. Do you remember what town?
Wildwood.
Oh,
It
that's
was at the
so fun.
seaside. You know it?
Wow. Oh, I know it. Oh, yeah, Wildwood. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's one of the beaches. That's so funny, Todor. When were you living in New Jersey and New York? Was it a long time ago?
Yes, I think it was 2013, 2014.
Okay, I was in New York too, so I wonder if we passed by each other back then. That's so funny. Wow. So you were there for a bit and then you went back to Bulgaria, right?
Yes, I came back here. I finished my education. I studied in the National Academy of Arts. I'm working here as a designer, so and I travel a lot in Europe and other places as well. Like it's here in Europe, at least everything is quite connected, so it's super easy
Yeah.
to go from one place to another, which is actually super fun because culturally we are quite different, and it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's a
Absolutely.
privilege.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. I've been to Vienna long ago. Gosh, what year is it?
same.
2025? I went back in like 2012, I think. My sister was studying abroad in Germany. And so my family and I did a little trip. We were fighting the whole time. Oh my God. My parents are so American. I was like, oh, but we went, from Switzerland to Italy to Austria to Germany. So just like did a little loop there. But you've been to Vienna?
I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago. It was
Yeah.
no longer than a week, but it was, this is one of the places I really liked. It just, the vibe is so me. It's so calm,
Yeah.
historical. They have these amazing high ceilings everywhere, which I'm totally in love with. They have these old things in the buildings, these old cafes. We see one of those in the movie.
Yeah.
So Vienna is an incredibly beautiful city. Funny enough, I actually remembered the movie in a very wrong way. It appears because I saw it when I saw the second one. It was shown to me by a friend, and
Mhm.
then she told me actually there's another movie that was made 7 years ago, and it deals with those two people meeting in Vienna. But somehow I forgot it was Vienna, and I thought it was New York. And since I do
Ah,
remember vividly, yeah, I do remember that they met with Celine later on in Paris, where she's from. I thought
mm,
he's American, he's probably from New York, and that's probably why I thought that they originally met in New York. So
right.
no, that's not the case, as we learn. It's Vienna.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a nice setting for a movie.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it's one of those cities where, at least in American film, I feel like we don't go to Vienna much. Like, you always see Paris, you always see, Italy, various cities in Italy, but like you don't really see a lot of Austria in movies, I feel like. Of course, like Sound of Music, like when I went with family, I remember going to Salzburg, and we went to Vienna,
Yeah,
but in Salzburg, it was where it's like Sound of Music country. Like the hotel we were in, I remember had all different images of like Sound of Music and Julie Andrews singing and everything. And I'll never forget, I took a selfie because it was one of the sunniest places I had ever been. And my hair, I used to dye my hair blonder back then, and my hair got like this fun, beautiful, like yellow. And I remember I was just like, wow, this Salzburg tan I got, like, I need to come here more often. Right now I'm very pale, white as a ghost. But yeah, I liked Austria. It was cool. It was a place that I didn't really ever it wasn't like high on my bucket list, maybe because I
yeah,
didn't know about it much. But yeah, going to like the Vienna Opera and walking around, totally. It's a great setting for this. And I think I did read somewhere that originally the idea was gonna be in the States, maybe in New York or a bigger city, but they switched it to Europe, to Vienna, so that they both were kind of on a more open, like open to whatever kind of possibilities. Because when you're traveling, you have a more open experience rather than when one of you is home, you're a little bit more closed off. I thought that was interesting,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I think yeah, it played a major role in how things developed between those two people because they were abroad, both of them.
Mhm.
Nobody knows them, so you meet this stranger, and of course you're more open to having experiences outside your comfort zone. Nobody would
Yeah.
know about, and you're in a foreign city, and it's unknown, and it's much more romantic. So you go with the flow, so it makes sense for the story even. Although
Right.
I did read that the original story because it is based on the personal experiences of the director. I'm not gonna even try to say his last name. I know the first one is Richard. I'm not sure how to say the other one.
Link
Linklater,
link later. Yep, you got it.
Linklater. Okay,
Uh-huh.
cool, cool, cool. So yeah, it's actually a little bit of a sad story what happened to him, but
Right.
the part on which he based the movie is actually quite romantic.
Yeah.
But before we go into that, I don't know if I did mention that I went so deep into this, like I was so serious about this. I did a
Good.
research, like tons of research.
Tell
I
me,
just
tell me.
wanted to, I just wanted to check what's been going on in the world in 1995.
Yeah.
So here's a few things which were happening this year from a cinematic perspective. This is the year when we got Toy Story, the first one,
Right.
Braveheart, Casino, Seven, GoldenEye, Die Hard with Vengeance, which I don't know why I included this one in the list. I haven't seen that one. I don't think it's a big
Oh, it's
thing,
a good
but
one. It's a good one.
it's a Bruce Willis movie, so let's have it there. Clueless,
Oh,
pivotal,
yes. Hmm.
groundbreaking, Alicia
Hmm.
Silverstone. Heat, Batman Forever, The
Hmm.
Unusual Suspects, and Pocahontas.
Yes. Oh my gosh, look at that
That
list.
was,
And I love
yeah.
like I feel like everyone listening is like, "Yes, Todor, tell me more. Tell me more about 1995." Yes, great list. A little bit of everything. Big animated movies, big like action, some good comedy, right? We had like such a good variety of all genres back then. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that those are movies, some of which, most of which actually, we still remember and we kind of quote as pivotal in this or that genre. So this year seems to be quite big for cinema.
Mhm.
And actually, other things happened that were very curious. Like this is the year when the DVD format was announced. So for the younger audience, what DVD is is how we used to watch movies after VHS. And
Mhm.
VHS is actually something even older that is
Mhm.
probably quite distinct at that moment. Also,
Yep.
it was the year when Windows 95 came out,
Right.
the O.J. Simpson trial, which was a big thing in the States.
Crazy.
Uh,
Mhm.
eBay and Yahoo were founded. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, this is pretty much the year when the internet became like an everyday thing, and people started using it for a lot of stuff, shopping included, apparently.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I guess that changed the scenery quite a lot. Like before the internet and after the internet, it's completely different world we've been living in. Some of
Absolutely.
us. Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
remember that time?
Oh, yeah. I
Before
remember,
internet,
like,
you know?
Windows 95 being new, and it looked so ugly, but, like, at the time, it was like, "Whoa," you know? Oh, yeah, and I
Yeah.
remember seeing some of those movies in the theater, especially the animated movies. I was turning 8 years old in '95, yeah. And how old you were probably around the same?
Yes,
30 years ago?
7.
Yeah.
I was
7,
7 years old at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, we're basically the same age, yeah. So, like you were saying, some of those great movies I remember seeing on TV, renting, like, really strong year for pop culture, for entertainment, and for some, yeah, like, pretty big changes in culture and in technology, right?
Significant, significant. I mean,
Now, tell me,
yeah.
Todor, like, what movies are out there right now? Like, do you get, like, American movies later, I assume, or, like, maybe it's at the same time? Like, what's
It's at the
popular right
same
now?
time.
Okay,
It's at
is
the
it
same time at the moment. We see pretty much the same content at the same time. I mean, there's difference actually in what we stream on these services here
Uh-huh.
and what is
Yeah.
being streamed in the United States. But I think whichever is like worldwide popular, we have it at the same time,
Yep.
basically. So I think culturally, in that sense, we are pretty much aligned
Yeah.
at that moment at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so interesting because sometimes some countries, it's like, "Oh, yeah, they don't even know who that is or what that is.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, when yeah,
No, it's
you're
the same,
pretty
pretty much
equal,
the
yeah.
same. Yeah. And
Interesting. Oh,
also
cool.
in terms of celebrities and in terms of all that, I think is quite aligned already. It's pretty much
Yeah.
the same everywhere. Like for
Yeah.
example, I remember when I went to New York and it's on the other way of the world, 7 hours difference. It's a
Right.
completely different place. It felt so familiar.
Oh,
It
yeah.
looked so familiar because of all the media and everything that I've seen. It's usually when it is an American movie, it's almost always New York. So you have this
Right.
perspective of that place, and it's super familiar, and which I liked, of course. And also growing up. I was born in '87, and
Mm.
like Friends was a big thing, and then Sex and the City was a big thing, and
Oh yeah.
I think partially our personalities are more or less formed based on these shows. Like the sense of humor we have is a little bit based on those shows and in that type of culture.
Yep.
You just recognize it as yours since you grew up with it. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I learned half the English I speak. I learned from TV
I was gonna
when I
say
was young.
probably, right?
So
Yeah, and your English
yeah,
is amazing, of course. How many languages can you speak?
yeah. Bulgarian and English.
Okay, you got 2. That's
Just those
great.
two. Just those two. Yeah.
Hey,
I,
that's
I
more
tried
than me.
I tried for German, it didn't work.
We'll be right back.
All right, I have an admittedly insane idea, but if I don't ask you this, it's just gonna haunt me the rest of my life.
I want everyone to know a little bit more about your great art because I feel like I can tell you have been watching movies since you were a kid. You have some really amazing designs of all kinds of beautiful men. But what really brought me to you was probably a year ago at least. I saw your amazing art of I Know What You Did Last Summer, Ryan Phillippe. What a babe. I've talked on the show about how he was like a sexual awakening. So, yeah, can you tell us more about your art and if specific movies or styles influenced you and how often you're designing all that good stuff?
Well, my profession is actually quite different from what I draw in my. I haven't like an Instagram account where I
Yeah.
collect all my illustrations, and this is more like creative outlet for me to do something more creative after work because my work is actually very uh, mm, technologically involved. So I work
Mhm.
as a designer on very complex applications,
Wow.
which is interesting, but in a very different way. It's not as creative. It's far less visual than doing an illustration, for example.
Yeah.
And so that's how I started to just draw while I was watching something on TV at night or in the evening, to be
Yeah.
more accurate. And I just started uploading those illustrations, and then people started to like them. I started to do it more often, and then it kind of grew. So
Mhm.
it's a very nice hobby that I have. I don't see it as anything else though. And it's I kind of like keeping it this way because it actually gives me that sort of satisfaction, which is I don't want to feel a pressure to deliver on that front
Mhm.
as well.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's I've been doing it for like 5 or 6 years already, and of course it's movie related. Like I read a lot and I watch a lot of movies, and one of the genres I really love is horror.
Yes.
So I grew up with the Scream movies, and
Mhm.
therefore I know what you did last summer and Urban Legends and all the '90s new wave
Slashers.
horror slashers. Yeah,
Yep.
it's always so much fun. So yes, some of my illustrations are movie connected. Sometimes they're like a queerified version of a movie where I just substitute all the female characters with male ones, which
Yes.
kind of share similar characteristics. And yeah, it's fun. I'm just trying to. I'm not really thinking as so much what am I doing exactly, or spending too much time on crafting a concept that I'm going to develop over time. I'm just opening my tablet and I'm just drawing. And if
That's
you're hearing
amazing.
my dog,
Do I hear
that's
a
because
pup?
I have a dog. Yeah.
Aw. Now, Todor, since you were talking about your tablet, I'm curious, and I'm sure other people are too. So do you draw everything on your tablet? Like you design everything like with a little kind of pen thing, and like, is that what you do?
Yeah, it's super comfortable. It's super easy. I draw by hand as well, but it just
Wow.
it takes a lot more preparation because you need to have the right materials and everything. And with the tablet, you just have all different sorts of techniques and colors and paintbrushes and types of materials that you want to use, and it's super easy. And again, this is something that I do after I'm done with work, gym,
Yeah.
cooking, cleaning, taking care of the dog, and all that. I'm just chilling at the sofa, and there's a movie playing, so it's just much easier. But
Yeah.
I graduated from a classical art academy, so we drew by hand a lot, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do enjoy doing this as well.
That's so cool. I love it. Now, and you like we were saying, you draw beautiful muscular men. So like where does the inspiration come besides movies? Are you like looking in the mirror and you're like, "Okay, I'm going to like copy myself," or are you like looking at the guys at the gym? Like where do your ideas of the male body like come from? Pictures, I guess, magazines, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I do use a lot of references, but most of the time I do use my own body
Yeah.
to reference poses.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm not as good to just imagine something and recreate it from my mind. I actually need to pose for it, take a picture, look at it while drawing, and it
Yeah.
works like that. And yeah, that's the body I have available, so I just use it. It,
There you go.
it
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Well, maybe after this you'll be inspired to do like a gay before sunrise design or something. And it would be so nice to have a gay version of that. I feel like we probably do, and I just can't think of it. But, that would be just so cool to see two guys meet and like wandering around the city. I'm sure it's out there, but
Oh, that
that
happens. I'm sure it happens. Of course, it happens. It's just
oh yeah,
how two people fall in love, and that happens across genders, generations, races, across
absolutely.
everything. Is the same for everybody practically.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it could be cool to see a version of this with like an older couple. What no matter what the gender is,
Yeah,
straight, gay, whatever.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
older, that could be really cute as well. Meryl Streep and I don't know, Harrison Ford. I don't know,
I
but
think
like
this is something
right?
that is happening much more often now. I don't know if you've
Mm,
noticed. I believe you have, but like people are making movies not just for 20 to 30 something and for teenagers. Now people seem to be making movies for all genders. There's more diversity in issues as well, which I
right.
I like very very much. Yeah,
Right.
it's much
Absolutely.
more saturated in that way
I
thematically.
agree.
I think
I
than it
agree.
used to be before.
And what you were saying about like the great new wave of like slashers in the late 90s, like I've said before on the show, even starting in 95 with movies like this and Clueless, like teens and like young people in their 20s were really like what the studios and the companies were going after. So for a while we had very young focused entertainment. But now, yeah, it's all over the place. There's young, but then there's a lot of stuff for older people and people our age. Yeah, look at this puppy. What's his name?
His name is Seth,
Oh,
like
Seth. What a
the Egyptian god. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
I have no idea what your situation is, but I feel like we have some kind of connection, right?
Yeah, me too.
Great. So listen, here's the deal. This is what we should do. You should get off the train with me here in Vienna and come check out the town.
So this movie Before Sunrise was released, I would say wide, in wide release, a lot of theaters, but actually I was looking, it was pretty limited. It was only in the US
Yeah.
when it came out. It was only like 300, maybe 400 theaters. So it had a smaller release, but it made a great amount of money for such a small movie, such a small budget, right? So it came out January 27th, 1995, just a couple days really, about a week or two after it premiered at the Sundance Film Festival. So had that buzz, went right to theaters. This was the top song in the US. You must know, I'm sure you know a lot of these big, big songs. So the number one song was Creep from TLC. So I
Hmm.
creep. Oh, love it. Iconic, right? Other songs in the top 10. Another Night from the Real McCoy. Another Night, Another Dream. Take a Bow from Madonna. And one of my all-time faves, Todor. And it felt like very much of this era. When you think of Before Sunrise, this song is part of that DNA. The song You Gotta Be from Desiree. You gotta be bad. You gotta be. Do you know these
Really?
songs?
That
Do you remember
tune?
that?
Yes,
Yeah.
all of them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. Of course. Right. They were all pretty big, but yeah, that was climbing the charts around this same time. So that was the music side. Other popular movies. Now, this, of course, didn't open up at number one or even in the top 10. Like I said, it had a smaller success, but the big movies to jog your memory. Number one was Legends of the Fall with long haired, beautiful Brad Pitt, right? I still have never seen that
That's the
movie.
best Brad Pitt. That's the best Brad Pitt I've ever seen, honestly,
Right.
with the long hair.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interview with the Vampire. He had just done that. I talked about that on the show a couple months ago. So like he was in his long hair sort of period piece phase back then. I still have never seen
He
Legends of
should
the
go there
Fall.
again. He should go there
Right?
again.
He
And
should
you
grow
should
it
see
out.
the movie.
Yes, I
Yes.
really should. I know people when I posted that, so many people said, "Oh my god, one of the best, makes me cry." And I'm like, "Really?" It looked so kinda like corny, sappy, but I'm gonna watch it, everybody. I'm totally gonna watch it. So Legends of the Fall, other popular movies in the top 10, Dumb and Dumber, big, obviously Jim Carrey, that came out around Christmas, so that was still hugely popular. The movie Higher Learning, which I don't know if that made its way to Bulgaria. It's a deeper cut, but a
Not
really
for me.
interesting movie, yeah, with a kind of plethora of different people, but it's about race and it's set in a college and just different kind of mid 90s issues, mostly very US focused. So that was in the top 10. Little Women, I just talked about that on the show with Winona Ryder. That was still very popular. Love that one so much. And the Tales from the Crypt movie, Demon Knight, with Billy Zane, Jada Pinkett. Did you ever see that one? Do you know that one?
Yes, yes,
Yeah, I was gonna say horror, you must know for sure. So those were in
pretty
the
much.
top 10, right? Those were all big deals, but here comes Before Sunrise, a sort of sleeper hit. And so now, Todor, I wanna throw it over to you. We've already kind of talked a bit about, what the movie's about, but in your own words, it does not need to be long. You can give me a little brief synopsis. What is Before Sunrise about for anyone that wants to hear it from your lips? Go for it.
Before Sunrise is about that magical moment where two people meet and find each other, and they have these, in this case, very brief moment in a beautiful city in Europe, where they actually fall in love, and they have until sunrise to experience that love, because afterwards, each of them goes their separate way. Um, and it's a three-piece story. It was never premeditated as one,
Mm,
but it's a beautiful love story which puts you in a very romantic, safe place, and it never takes you out of there. You're safe the whole time. You can just relax and enjoy, um, and experience the way people communicate
mm.
fully, openly. No games, nothing to hide, nothing to lose. Just fall in love.
Yeah. Beautiful. Absolutely. Have you ever had a situation like this where you're traveling and you just strike up a great conversation with a stranger? I mean, I feel like nowadays it doesn't happen so much because we're all online, we're all on our phones. But have you ever had an experience like this?
An experience like this, yes, but it wasn't in a foreign country. It was in my own country. But
Okay.
yeah, I've had
Cool.
that date which started as a date and continued as a whole day of conversation and then as a relationship. So yeah,
Oh, nice. Oh my gosh,
yeah.
that's beautiful. I love that, Todor. That is so cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever, well, I've never actually traveled. I mean, I've traveled alone for work, like work trips around the US, but I've never traveled internationally alone. I don't know. Maybe I'll do it someday, but I don't
Oh,
know.
you
I
should.
I don't
This is
I
a
don't
very different experience. You should
Yes.
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because wait, yeah, when you traveled to the US, when you traveled internationally, you came alone, right? Or did you have
Yes.
like yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I'll try it someday. It kinda scares me, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I love traveling. I'll travel with a friend, whoever, internationally. Oh my god, yeah, but to go alone, I don't know. I definitely wanna try it, but I'm a little overwhelmed by it. You know what I mean? Maybe that's the American mindset of me.
It is overwhelming in the sense of that everything's up to you, and all decisions are going to be made by you, and
Right.
that might be a little bit scary, but it's exciting because again, there's nobody else you need to think about or consider. You just exactly do whatever you want to do, and you
Right.
experience places, I think, in a very different way.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
freeing. It's very freeing,
Yeah, and you just pop into a restaurant or a cafe or a whatever, and yeah, you're not on any real,
and things
plan or
happen.
time limit. Yeah,
Uh huh.
absolutely, interesting. Yeah, maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll visit Bulgaria. Wow, there we go. Okay. Just not during winter. Let's meet up like these 2
No,
do
no,
in the
let's
summer.
do this. Yeah, we need a warmer time. It's a
Yes.
little bit nicer. Yeah.
Right, yeah, and I do love that every one of these movies, of course, this is part of the Before trilogy, right? This starts, the story, and then there's Before Sunset, Before Midnight, but I do love how every movie is in the summer, because they even say this is June, and then and before
Hmm.
sunset, it's a nice, warm spring summer day, and then I know and before midnight, they're there on summer break with their kids. So it is fun to see these beautiful cities, thriving and everything's blooming, and it's much. I think it's much nicer to see warmth rather than. It could be interesting if they ever do a sequel to do it in the winter where like there's snow and like, oh, let's go in here, but I think the whole energy of just wandering and just having no real plan is so summer.
Yeah, it doesn't quite work if you have scarves and big jackets on and boots
Right.
and it's rainy. It makes things a little bit more difficult.
We just got into Vienna today, and we're looking for something fun to do.
But I think that there's actually an open conversation about doing another sequel.
Oh my gosh, I would love it.
Yeah,
Now, would you? Because I know you were saying that normally this would not have been your cup of tea, your kind of movie,
no,
but now that
no.
you've watched them, would you want them to continue, or are you good with the trilogy?
I don't know if I want them to continue. And that's the other thing. This wasn't premeditated as a three-piece story. They just told one story, and after a certain amount of time, it's like they created this creative group of people between the director and the actors, and also there was another writer, female writer, that was part
Yes.
of the whole thing. And they just felt that they need to tell another story about those characters. 7 years, I think. Was it 7 years later, the second part?
9 years. Every 9 years
9 years.
they
It's
made
9 years.
movies. Hmm.
And then they did another one in 2014, I think it was. It came out.
Right.
The third.
Yeah. 13.
So
Hmm.
that's a very good question, actually. I'm sure that those two people have more to tell, like later in
Yeah.
life, because life
Hmm.
continues and so many interesting things can happen to you at any point.
Hmm.
And now being 37, I realize that so much than I would when I was 25 or 16, thinking
Hmm.
that people at 25 are like old. Not
Hmm.
old, but super grown up, which is
Yep.
not true at all.
Uh-uh.
Um, so I think there's definitely place for that type of stories, and I think the chemistry that they have, um,
Hmm.
Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy, I think they can definitely tell another story. And to be honest, I think um, the storytelling is getting better with each movie, and the dialogue is getting better with each movie, and that's
I
very
agree.
very important because this movie is practically 90% of dialogue and
Hmm.
monologue. So it's
Hmm.
it's a lot of talking all the time,
It's a lot of talking.
and
Can you imagine
yeah,
like being I mean it's very much a two-hander. Like there are other small roles, of course. They talk to different people around the city, but it's just these
yeah,
two. There is so
yes,
much to
yeah.
memorize and talk. Although it feels either they are such great actors or I'm sure with Richard Linklater, there was some opportunity for improv, improvisation, coming up with some stuff, following the script, but you can just feel there's like a natural conversational vibe where like it's not always memorized lines. They're kind of throwing some stuff out there. You know what I mean? It feels that way.
Oh, from what I read, I think that everything was actually scripted, and there were some things that
Wow.
were improvised on the spot, but they were scripted afterwards. So the scenes
Uh,
that we see were actually written in advance, and
Interesting.
I don't know how you do that because it seems like it was made by these very long takes where a certain actor would talk and talk and talk and talk, and yes, it has to feel natural. And I think, to be honest, it doesn't seem quite natural in the first movie. But you know
Mhm.
what? When I was listening to those characters speak and how they approached each other, I realized that these are 25-ish
Mhm.
characters, right? And I
Yep.
did remember that once I was at the party at a friend's place, and one of our friends brought his girlfriend, and she was 25, and we were all like 35 and plus. Uh, and she was so intimidated that she was trying to sound smart, and she was talking about politics and philosophy, and she was phrasing herself in a very complicated way. and
Yeah.
you could see that she was super tense and super intimidated. And I suppose this is something that you do when you're 25 and you're
Right.
trying to impress people around you, because when
Mhm.
you're in your late 30s, you don't give a shit as much. Like, you're
Yeah.
not really trying to impress people anymore.
Right.
But at 25, it's a different story. And
Oh
they
yeah.
liked each other very much. They were trying to impress each other very much, or at least Jesse's character was trying to impress um,
Uh-huh. Celine.
Celine, because it was kind of clear that Jesse really likes her and would like to for things to happen between them. Where Celine knew that if she wanted, things would definitely happen between them. So it was up to her, and she
Right.
felt much more in control and much more relaxed in the situation. Where for me, he was kind of trying, he was kind of pushing it a little bit.
That's interesting.
That's my
And
perspective. Yeah.
yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, he's the one. She notices him when she moves in the beginning to sit near him, but he the camera even does this really nice kind of push into him where it's almost like he's realizing like, whoa, like she's beautiful. I like her, you know? But it's interesting. I had forgotten he had just broken up with his girlfriend earlier on this same trip. So it's sort of funny how he's sort of maybe looking for a rebound, you know, and obviously it grows more than that. He, you know, they fall in love, they talk for hours, all day, all night long, right? But it's just sort of funny, like she's kind of a rebound, but as we see in the sequels, she forever changes his life. So it's kind of cool how the timing, when you think of it, like, oh, you just got out of like a longer relationship, you're not ready for another one, but he was, and because of their dynamics not seeing each other for years, you know, between one and two, um, there was time for him to, you know, absence makes the heart grow fonder, as they say. So there was time to really kind of let that new love kind of marinate in both of their brains.
I like to feel his eyes on me when I look away. You couldn't possibly know why a night like this is so important to my life right now, but it is.
Yeah, I just love how both in one and two, before sunrise and sunset, I think it's really so brilliant how it ends with Jesse's gotta get on the plane. He's gotta go back home, right?
Mm.
Does he? Does he not? You know, like the first one he does, you know, they part ways, of course, but the second one is so vague, that beautiful ending. But I just love a story that has, you know, there's a time limit, you know, there's like an end goal where it's like, yeah, the story has to end. It's not just like, you know, it'll fade and, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like what makes this kind of conversation exciting is they only have limited time together in both movies, you know, and Before Midnight, it's different. They're together. I forget if they're married. I haven't seen that one in a long time. They're either married or
I
they're
think yes.
unmarried, but have like kids and they're like, you know,
Partnership and
partners.
kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're basically a family. Yeah, regardless
Right.
whether or not they were married. But I think they were. I don't remember exactly, but
Yeah.
they were living as a married couple with
They
having
bicker
kids.
like a married couple. So yeah, that, you know, that one's
For sure.
the third one's kind of sad. And it's funny, those of you who are listening who follow me on Instagram, I did a poll, and Todor, you might have seen the poll. I just did it yesterday. Which one is your favorite? And one and two were equal. They got like 47% each, something like that. And Before Midnight got one vote. So it is funny how the third one is amazing. It is so good. But I think because it's sad, you know, we don't there are times when like they're gonna break up, you know, they became that couple in the beginning that's fighting on the train, you know, that then brings them together, making her sit, you know, so I would love to see a sequel, you know, because I just love growing old with these great characters, no matter what the movie is, right? Scream 7, like I love to see people get
Mm.
older and I want to connect with them again. So I could totally see a before whatever, but it does work really well as a trilogy because now they kind of became that bickering couple. Are they going to last? Or like they say in this first movie, is there such a thing as a soulmate? Like, are we supposed to only have the one and that's it, you know? So it works as a three-parter, you know?
I don't actually think about the outcome of the whole story,
Mhm.
especially for the first one and the second one. And I think this is something that I like. I don't need to think about the outcome. I don't need to
Mhm.
care whether or not there's going to be a happy ending, because they seem to understand the situation pretty well.
Mm.
In the first movie, they just realized that they're probably not going to continue with this relationship. Like,
Yeah.
it's very hard to manage. It's a long distance. They're having this moment, which having had more time, they would probably find they actually have a conversation about things. Find about this. Find things about each other that they don't like as much, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why this moment is so mesmerizing because it's a moment,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a capsule of time. It's a constrained time and constrained space because they're in this one city, which is neither hers nor his, which is super freeing.
Yes.
And they know that probably this is not going to continue. Therefore, let's take everything we can from this moment for ourselves and not lose time worrying over perspectives,
Yeah.
which I think is what's genius about this movie. I really love the concept of having this story being told through time, which wasn't exactly like premeditated as such. That's how
Mm.
it developed. But and it's in horror as well. I do like when things are happening over one night or one day in one
Agreed.
place, because you kind of get to concentrate on the characters and the relationships they develop, and you
Right.
don't have the distraction of what's going around and outside of this situation. So it
Absolutely. It gives you like nice parameters of like I always think of
frames things kind of, yeah.
exactly. Like I always think of like the
Yeah.
Scream movies because I'm a horror nerd like you. Like, yeah, they really only happen over maybe 3 nights, 3 to 4 nights, like it's
Yeah.
short. Like it helps you focus on the problem. So in this movie, the problem is, oh, we like each other, but oh, I'm only here for 18 more hours. So like, yeah, it just helps us, the viewer, really zero in on the characters, who they are, who they are together before time's up. Yeah, I love it too.
Sprechen Sie English?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Could you speak German for a change?
So our key players, obviously written by, like you were saying, Todor, two writers, male and female, which I think is really important for a story like this. And Richard Linklater did want to bring on his co-writer Kim Krizan, not sure exactly. This was her first screenplay. So go you, Kim. That's awesome. But he wanted to have that female perspective so that it really is a balanced story and obviously as natural and realistic as possible, which is so smart. So Richard Linklater not only wrote, but of course directed. And right before this, he had just done a very popular movie, a big one for him, Dazed and Confused, with a big cast. So comedy, and this has some comedy, of course, but this is a much smaller, much more simple and romantic kind of story compared to that one, right? And then our two leads, Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. I mean, they are both so damn cute in this movie. I mean, Ethan with the
Yeah.
hair, I'm like, oh my God, why did I just get my hair cut? I want hair like Ethan Hawke. And Julie Delpy just looks like effortlessly cool and beautiful, right? But so Ethan, the year
Yeah.
before, had just done, he was in like his prime Ethan Hawke, early to mid 90s dreamboat vibe. He had just done Reality Bites with Winona, right? And Ben Stiller, Janine Garofalo, all those good people, very 90s grunge. And the year before that, he did such an intense movie. Do you remember Alive, the plane crash in the winter? And they have to
Yes.
like, right? So he was in that. Over with Julie Delpy, she had just done the Three Colors trilogy, Blue, White, and Red, which I've never seen, but I've heard about. Have you ever seen those three movies?
No, and I haven't heard about them, but yeah, it sounds interesting. It's a trilogy.
Yeah,
It's named after colors. I'm
Colors,
sold.
yes.
Yeah.
Isn't that so interesting? Yeah, and they all came out
Yeah.
like pretty quickly, like from 93 to 94-ish, 93 to 95. So she had just done those, and she had just done one of my favorite movies as a kid. You probably saw it too. I don't know why, but I haven't seen it in decades, so it's probably not as good as I think. But I think it was 1993, The Three Musketeers with Kiefer Sutherland, Charlie Sheen, Chris O'Donnell. What a babe.
Mm.
So she had a supporting role in that as well, which was, of course, very fitting for her, being so, European and could easily, add into a period piece. So
95, you said?
that I think was 93. That was just a couple years prior, I'm
93.
pretty sure. Yeah. Did you ever
So
see that one?
she was like 21 or 20, 21 while they were filming 20. So
Oh,
she
yeah.
was extremely young.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And what's so cool is, like we're saying, there are two writers on this specific movie. Although Julie Delpy has said that she and Ethan like rewrote the movie, but then Kim,
Mm.
the female writer, was like, "Well, no, like that's not really true." So who knows? But at least I think it's so brilliant in the sequels that Ethan and Julie were on the writing team. They
Yes.
co-wrote it with Richard.
Yeah.
I don't think Kim continued writing it. She kind of gets credit for story by and characters by, but the three of them would write the sequels and then they would get Oscar noms. This one never got a script nomination, but the second and the third got, best screenplay nominations. So it's
Mm.
really amazing what really these four, but especially the three, director and two actors, have really created together.
Men are lucky we don't bite off their head after mating. Certain insects do that, like spiders and stuff. We at least let you live.
The second one, I rewatched that last night, and it just makes me smile the whole time. I love the sequel so much, Before Sunset, but you can really feel their input even more in the later sequels. You can feel like Julie Delpy's, since she's also not only an actress, but she's like an activist. You can feel there's more
Mm.
talk of politics and government and, pollution, global warming. You can hear all that and you feel her input, which is pretty cool, you know?
Yeah, she's very outspoken in this movie as well, and she mentions quite a few things. And I can only imagine how personal this project feels for everybody involved, but especially for the actors and for the director. Like, and yes, they got a writing credit on the sequels, and it makes
Yeah.
perfect sense that they kind of made these characters theirs, and they
Yeah.
change them and they make them sound more believable. And I think that it wouldn't work unless you have an amazing chemistry between those two characters.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
I didn't read about their relationship, how it was, but I would only suspect that they truly like each other and they're super fond of each other, and it shows on screen.
Oh
And
yeah.
did you read that who else was considered for the different roles?
Oh, tell me. I didn't see that. I did see they were doing the casting process for like 9 months. Like Richard Linklater was really careful to do a long process to find the right actors. So, who were some other people in the mix? I love this conversation.
So I read that he actually didn't want to cast Ethan Hawke because he was too young for him, but
Mhm.
he saw him in a play, and then he realized how much of a good actor he is, and that he would have the maturity to portray this character.
Yeah.
And before Sophie Duffy, I think they considered Jennifer Aniston and Gwyneth Paltrow. So
Interesting.
can you can
Interesting.
you see can you see this movie with any of those two
You know,
actors?
I really could totally see it with Gwyneth Paltrow. Maybe because
Yeah.
she and Julie Delpy could be sisters almost. You know what I mean? They look so similar. Gwyneth does have a kind of cool, laid back vibe. Jennifer, I think could have done it, but it would have been a different movie. It would have been a little more. She would have had to be, yeah, the American, and then I guess
It would have been very American, very Hollywood kind of movie. And
yes,
yeah, one of the things that makes it work, actually, I think it's the fact that those are two people from different continents. And I
yeah,
think that kind of sells the story, and it elevates it a little bit to something different. And
yeah.
um, so yeah, they it was a long casting process, but once he found the separate characters in the faces of Ethan Hawke and Julie Depp, the chemistry was there between them as well, and
Oh yeah.
he was sold on these are my two characters, and
Oh yeah.
these are my yeah, and
They're a
that's
perfect couple, right? It's so fun to see them laugh together, like, and we'll talk about some of our favorite
I
moments in a
think
minute,
they
but
grow
like
into that so much with
yeah.
sequels. Like you
Mhm.
can see how these people really like, love, know each other very well.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can
Yeah,
tell in the sequels, they're having fun reuniting. They really are. Like, the just the electricity between them, when they laugh, that's not forced. It feels like they really are surprising each other and laughing, you know? It's so good. It's really such an amazing acting exercise. And this is what's so cool about Richard Linklater, because, he does a lot of the one-off movies, but a movie like this and a movie like Boyhood, which got a lot of awards love, right? Like, how he shot that each year a little bit for what, like 10 years or more. And then this is kind of similar when you look at it as one big long movie, taking his time. All right, it's been 8 years. What are you doing next year? Let's like get together again. So I really appreciate his very, when you think about it, very experimental kind of way to make a story to film, but luckily because
It's
it's
a yeah,
successful, it works, right?
it's very interesting way of storytelling.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
probably very good in maintaining his relationships with the people he works with, because it's a
Mhm.
small cast and it's
True.
it's not a lot of people, and you have to stay close to with these people, and you have to really like each other so you can pick up the phone after a certain amount of years and ask
Yeah.
them to come, you know, make a scene or two or three. And those people careers evolve and they become more and more famous, because in the beginning, like uh I mean, Ethan Hawke was a heartthrob and probably a household name,
Oh, yeah.
but later in the later years he become bigger and bigger and bigger. But
Definitely.
I guess they really liked each other, so that's why they made themselves available for these projects to happen.
Hey, Rewinders. Hope you're loving this love fest as much as I am. If so, don't forget to leave a rating on the app you're using to listen or a thumbs up on YouTube. So it's not just Todor and me who have things to say about this great movie Before Sunrise and its sequels. Here are friends of the pod Rudy Valdez from my last episode and also Jason Choate with their thoughts.
Hey, Mark, it's Rudy. I just wanted to say a quick hello and let you know how much I adore Before Sunrise. It's the start to a phenomenal trilogy. But before we even get that far down the road, we have to just examine Sunrise by itself. It's just a fun little snapshot of young love, taking chances, having a fun wild night out, and just kind of just living life. It definitely has that charm to it. And what was so great about it is when we watch these people, basically fall in love, have this amazing night, and then say goodbye. And we weren't sure if they were ever going to get back together or meet up again, and we were always left wondering that. And so, and granted, we do see the progression of the relationship later on, but it was one of those movies that I would watch and would always wonder what happened to them, because it was such a magical, fun night for them that they took us on this fun little journey of love, and unexpected experiences. Much love for the sequel, which builds onto the story even more so. And then, of course, there's Midnight, Before Midnight, that kind of like rounds out the entire story and just kind of puts an end to it, as far as we know. But yeah, just a fun cast. I love both of them so much in this series. I love their characters, and I loved seeing their characters grow with each sequel. And so, but yes, Before Sunrise, just a fun movie, and I adore it.
Hello, my name is Jason or Jayzuki on Instagram. I'm located in the Central Valley. I'm here to kind of share some love for Before Sunrise. Just these two people walking the night in Vienna. I appreciated the in-depth dialogue with vulnerability. Just seemed like a very intellectual compatibility, that also included flirting with intimacy. I just feel like I've grown up with these characters of Jesse and Celine, being that there's now three installments, all 9 years apart. However, after seeing the first one, I didn't ever dream of, getting two more movies. That ending of the film, if they ever met again, depending on your views, or optimism, we would later learn they did meet up again in a short segment of Richard Linklater's Waking Life. However, that would go into more detail with the second installment. Some highlights of the movie: Kath Bloom's song "Come Here." That song was perfect for that scene with Jesse and Celine in the listening booth, glancing back and forth at one another and without making eye contact. The tension of time throughout the movie with the clock ticking, the slow burning farewell, their shared journey, where night was coming to an end, the saying goodbye early so they didn't have to do it at the end at the train station, them looking at one another without having cameras and just staring at one another so they could have like a mental picture of them in their mind, in their head. And I just felt like the movie was firing on all four cylinders when it came to, shared human experiences that they had from meeting one another, making a connection, the intensity of their connection, and then that sad goodbye, or wondering if they'd ever see each other again. So that's a little snapshot of my love for this film. Thanks for the time.
Do you think if Before Sunrise was made today, would it even be theatrical, or would it just go? I think it would probably just go right to streaming. I don't think a movie today, even if it was like one pretty well-known star like Ethan Hawke at the time, Julie Delpy wasn't, a household name, right? At least not here in the States, But could this movie with, I don't know, who's Ethan Hawke today? Maybe oh gosh, it's tough to kind of, maybe if would it be like Jacob Elordi? I
Yeah,
always
I
think
was
of Jacob,
thinking about the
right?
same. Yeah, yeah.
Someone like him, not like a
Someone from
superhero.
Euphoria. Yeah,
Yeah,
someone from
yeah, someone from
Euphoria.
Euphoria, right? So
Yeah.
him, and then, some awesome European girl, that I can't think of right
Direct to
now,
streaming. No, no
right?
direct to streaming.
Yeah,
Impossible. Yeah.
yeah.
People
And so
just,
if
I don't think people show to the event unless it's a,
yeah,
a bigger cynic kind of
yeah,
movie which is
a
actually more
visual.
suitable for a big screen as well. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I don't think it
This
could go
movie
theatrical.
works better in a smaller setting, but I you can also see it in like a smaller theater where it's a more select kind of crowd, but it's not
Yeah,
like the mainstream kind of crowd that
yeah.
goes in the mall to watch the next big budget
Right,
story.
right. No, this is
Um,
a different vibe. It has to be like an art house, an
it's a
indie
different
theater,
vibe.
more
Yes.
intimate. I did see the third one in the
Which is
theater. This
fine, which is okay, I think.
Oh,
It's not,
yeah.
yeah, I saw that in the French Institute here in Sofia, and it was
Oh, cool.
uh, a small group of people, and it was the whole theater laughed so hard on certain scenes,
Yeah.
and it was a great group cinematic experience. I don't get that a lot when I go to the movies, to be honest. Like, I think the Bulgarian public is not as responsive. We don't react as much. We just
Right.
sit there and watch the movie.
Yeah.
But it's when it happens, when you're watching something and people are reacting, and it's a shared reaction, it actually contributes to the whole experience, because it's not just the surround sound and the
Mhm,
big screen. It's
mhm.
also the fact that you're with those people who also want to see the same movie,
Yeah.
and you guys are reacting at the same time, and you have the shared experience.
Since we're never gonna see each other again, I don't think we should sleep together.
Let's see each other again.
I don't want you to break our vow, just so you can get laid.
I missed the first one. Like, we were young. It looked a little too romantic for me. I wasn't really interested in it. I watched
Oh no,
the
it was a
sequel,
grown-up movie.
right?
Like,
It was a
you
grown-up
were eight.
movie.
You wouldn't see
Yeah.
that movie. No.
No. Yeah. And like even growing up, even at like 12, 13, 14, I'm like, "Oh yeah, Before Sunrise, it looks good, but nah, I'm not, but not until college, right?" It's funny. Like, you have to be a little more mature to appreciate these kinds of movies, right? So in college, in a film class, my great professor, we would watch movies every Wednesday. I was like, this is heaven. And he was saying, okay, next week we're watching the sequel, Before Sunset. And he said, so if you haven't seen the first film, go to the library, go rent it. This was back when Blockbuster was still around, although they were
Mm.
starting to close. This was like in 2007, 8. And so he said, so go rent it. I was like, okay. So I
We are
rented
so
that.
old.
I know, I know. We were around when Blockbuster was like, yeah, we saw the highs and the lows of Blockbuster. Although now Blockbuster's coming back, I see around the country as like, well, it's not Blockbuster. Although I did read there might be a one Blockbuster bar, which could be really cool. But
Yeah,
now we're seeing like
yeah, I
in the
read that as
US,
well.
right? We're seeing like speakeasies pop up, and it's like video stores. I mean, I'm into it. I want to go to these, but they're popping up all over. So we'll see. But yeah, so I borrowed Before Sunrise, watched it at home, thought it was just so amazing, so nice, what's not to love? And then seeing the sequel in class, I was floored. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so fun and exciting." It's again, two people just walking and talking, but the sequel has such a um just such an excitement. It's like there's an intensity there because time is so short. They went from a day to now an hour and 15 minutes, right? It's a short movie. And their sexual chemistry, they're really into each other, but they're in different places. I just I love it so much. Because the first movie, Before Sunrise, kind of keeps it a little vague. Did they have sex in the park? Like they're
I
making
was
out. It
going to
seems
say, I
like
was going to ask you, did they or didn't they? Because they
right,
didn't like show that explicitly, and
right.
um, yeah, I don't
I
think
could right,
I
we
don't think
you
they
could
did.
see it kinda going either way because she's sorta like,
Yeah,
"No, I don't want it to just be about that," but then they're making out and they're like, "Okay," and then we just see them the next morning, so it's like, "Well, did they or didn't they?" But the sequel does confirm. Julie Delpy says, "We had sex twice that night," and, so yeah, they did do it, and apparently it was amazing, so good for them in the park under the Vienna stars, right?
maybe
But,
she just said that because she wanted to take care of Jesse's reputation. We don't know. Maybe
maybe,
she was just
yeah,
trying to.
yeah, you never know.
Now I'm gonna call my best friend in Paris, who I'm supposed to have lunch with in 8 hours. Okay?
Okay.
Ring, ring. Pick up the phone.
Oh, hello.
So I'm gonna give you like several scenes that I really liked a lot.
Yeah.
The first one is that scene in the train where Jesse convinces Celine to join him and see Vienna together. It's just the things that Ethan Hawke does, and his facial reactions and body twitches and stuff, which made it very real.
Yeah.
Um, I like the scene in the listening booth a lot,
Oh, yes,
where there's no
iconic.
dialogue and it's just the music that tells the whole story. And
Yep.
if you listen to the text, then you just see those two people not watching each other because they never like cross eyes. It's always one looking at the other, and then it's
Yeah,
it was a very nice scene. I like the
I love
Q&A
it.
scene that they have in the back of the tram, and they're just
Right.
Q&Ing about. It was fun, like. And on a first date, when there's actual chemistry and there's really two people very much liking each other, you do talk about those things, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
fun. Everything that you guys talk about, it's a moment you don't want to end, and the conversation just
Yeah,
flows.
absolutely. And
Um,
and that scene specifically that you just mentioned at the back of the bus, the tram, that's really when I was like, "Whoa, this is such a long take." Like, the camera's still rolling, like,
mm,
they
mm,
are remembering all these lines and just totally in it and focused on each other and their memories. Very impressive. Yeah, I love that scene too, and how I believe it's he almost touches her hair. He almost, like, moves her hair out of
yes,
her face,
and
which
he
is
has her arm like that, but he's not
yes,
touching her, and she's
yes,
aware of that arm, and he's aware of what he's trying to do. And then when, yeah, it's a very,
yeah,
but it is like that between, usually when you have this chemistry, and the man is sometimes a bit more timid and not sure because he doesn't know if something that he does might ruin the moment. And
right.
it's very sweet. It has that boyish kind of energy, and it
Oh,
brings some
yeah,
innocence and romance to the whole thing, which I really enjoyed.
yeah.
The other scene that I really liked was the one in the cafe in Vienna, which is probably like 3, 4, or 5 in the morning already at that point.
Right,
And they're
right.
in this very old, very beautiful cafe where there's like a different kinds of people on the different
Uh-huh.
tables.
So funny.
Super peculiar, funny looking, talking about different. There was one American as well. They were from different places,
Yeah.
and then they have this pretend ring conversation.
Mhm.
They're
Yep,
making phones with their hands, and they
yep.
manage to talk about things that they feel insecure about, like
Right.
whether or not uh, they they liked each other. For example, what she's saying, pretending to be his friend, is she probably liked you, and that's why she made the decision to sit across from you. Which is actually Cecile telling Jesse, "I liked you. That's why I chose to sit across from you." Like they're
Right.
reassuring each other that this is real. This
Yeah,
this is not imaginary for either one of us. This is real
right.
for both of us. It's
Yeah.
shared.
I love that scene.
Which,
It's so cute, and it's also so smart just as human beings to be like, "Okay, I'm gonna call my friend and tell her that I'm not gonna make it to lunch tomorrow because I'm with this stranger." And she's talking to her friend, but really she's talking to Jesse, right? And
yeah.
she's basically telling Jesse, I really like you. Like, I like your hair. I like everything about you, but it's in a safe way because she's talking to her friend. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's just so cute, so charming. And it's something that I think a lot of us would do to sort of carefully tell each other, like, yeah, I really like you. Like, this is amazing. But you don't want to say that just directly because then it's like, ugh, weird. You know what I mean? So
I
it's
don't know
very
if
cute.
people are so sensitive, like in general, and I'm not sure if people are so romantic anymore. I think just we
Mm,
have other channels of communication that have polluted the normal way of communicating with each other,
yeah. Wow.
and have obscured our way of how we see things and how we perceive communication in general, which is extremely sad.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is.
Right.
But yeah, and I really like that they don't play. Usually when people like each other, they play a lot. They don't
Mm,
allow to express how much they like each other.
mm,
But the fact that they felt safe enough to do this at that early stage, this only happens when things are true for both of you and you both feel
mhm.
it. Then you
Yeah.
feel safe. Then you can say whatever you want to say. It doesn't matter. It's not going to ruin anything. It's not
Yeah.
it's not going to, it's not a game anymore. It's not something that you're trying to win. You've
Right.
already won, basically.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I love that. Well said. Yeah. They're kind of what's so nice about it is kind of from the beginning, they're not really playing a ton, like, they're pretty
Mm-mm.
open, pretty
Yeah.
honest, but then, yeah, doesn't take long, midway through the movie, yeah, there's no, like, acting, there's no, like, oh, like, the dumb things you might do, especially when you're in your 20s on a date, like,
Mm.
pretending to be someone else. No,
Mm.
by then, it's as if they've known each other for years and they're just completely opening up and yeah, it's like it's no bullshit, you know what I mean? There's like
No
cutting all the
bullshit.
bullshit out,
Exactly.
right? Thank
Yeah.
you, Seth.
Yeah.
Seth's
Yeah.
like, yeah, no bullshit.
He agrees. He hates bullshit. He's not a bullshit guy.
I don't think I'm gonna be able to make it for lunch today, I'm sorry. I met a guy on the train and I got off with him in Vienna. We're still there.
Are you crazy?
Probably.
One that I really liked was when they're out at like one of the restaurants, one of the cafes sitting outside, and the fortune teller, the psychic
Yeah.
comes over. And I think that's really fun because it's just a really I mean, I actually really want to see a psychic soon. I need some like perspective from someone. But so that's already kind of cool. And especially on like kind of a first date, ooh, like, is she gonna tell me something bad about this guy? Like, so there's that mystery there. But what does she say? I wrote it down. She says, like, we are all stars. Go be stars, something like that, right? But before she leaves, and I just love how she's like, okay, money. But before she
Yeah.
goes, she kind of digs into Jesse a little bit, which gets him a little ruffled, which then causes
Mm-hmm.
them to have their first kind of, Jesse says, did we just have our first fight? Because she calls him a rooster prick. So even though it was not a fight, there's a little bit of heat. There's a little bit of tension there because he's like, what does she know about me? And like, she's robbing you. And, he didn't like what the psychic said about him. So this cute
But there's
moment then
also,
turns a little
yeah,
sour.
there's a little bit of growth in Jesse's character in this regard because this is how he reacts with the psychic. Of course, it's in his perspective, it's a scam. She
Yeah,
chooses to see it as something that's part of the magic. Then,
right.
when the poet writes the poem based on the word they give him, what
Yes,
was the
milkshake.
word?
Milkshake.
Milkshake.
Yep.
She again is mesmerized by the moment where
Right.
he's like he probably had this poem written in advance.
Right.
He just knocked the word in so he can get the money.
Yeah.
But then at the end, there's this scene where they're seeing this person playing. It's not a piano because it has like a double keyboard. I don't know what this is called.
Right, I'm
And
blanking on what it's called as well, but yeah, they're looking kinda down in the window, right, mhm.
yeah, but this time he's not making any snotty remarks about whether or not
Mm,
this is like romantic or true or whatever. He's
right,
just listening to the music and looking at her face because
right.
it seems that now he's kind of a different person at that point in time
Yes,
at
well,
the end
they
of their meeting.
they got it on in the park, so now he's like,
Maybe
euphoric,
that's
going
the
back to euphoria.
reason.
But I love
Maybe.
that moment as well. I love that moment as well, Todor, because, yeah, you have this, like, old-timey maybe it's like an organ or I forget what it's called, but, yeah, you have this kind of old-timey music in this old-timey city, And I just love how he's like, all right, let's take a picture. And for a second I thought, wait, where's their camera? Or where's their phone? No cell phones that had cameras back then. They didn't
Thank
have a
God.
camera.
Yeah.
So, right? Thank God. But so then they just stand there, and you're so right. They listen to that music that they don't hear every day, right? And they just look at each other and really look. And I love that, because how often do we do that? Not often at all, right? Where you really look at someone, look at their surroundings, you take that picture, and you probably never forget it, where you're actually actively remembering this moment rather than just
How could you
living and
do
then,
it? How
right.
could you do it at this point of time? You're too busy looking at your phone like
I
every
know. It's
couple
a
of
good
minutes.
reminder, honestly. It's a really good reminder to yeah, when you're hanging out with someone, whether it's a friend or a date or a partner, to really stop and look and remember the moment, It's actually really beautiful,
Because
you
it's
know?
so much important that everything that's happening on that phone, because this is a person you like, love, cherish, whose company you enjoy. So enjoy that company. Don't get
Yeah.
distracted by something that has absolutely no meaning to your own personal world. Like
Yeah.
it's it's just an addictive part of everyday life that we experience today, and it's not easy
Absolutely.
to hook yourself out of it. Hook out, no, no, hook
Uh
up, I don't know,
I
unhook.
knew it. Unhook. There you go. Hook. There you go. I got
Yeah,
you. I was
from that.
following. Yeah. Yeah. The line that I found from the psychic, I just thought this was just a sweet line. Everything we know is stardust. So don't forget you are stardust. Simple, but it's yeah, I think that puts a lot of our issues and a lot of our worries into perspective. We're just a bunch
You're
of
just a
particles.
speckle. Yeah,
Yeah. So and what you're going through is important, what you're thinking is important, but it's helpful to stop and be like, you know what, I'm a speck, right? So just breathe and get over it, right? So
just
yeah.
breathe and get over it. It's a good way of going through life, I think.
Right, yeah.
He has beautiful blue eyes, nice pink lips, frizzy hair. I love it.
It's a time capsule because it's
Yeah.
gonna bring you to a reality that we no longer have. At the same time, it deals with a universal theme, which is falling in love, which is something that I hope every human being on this planet will experience in their lifetime, because it's a
Mhm.
magical thing that is probably the greatest part of life. The movie, it's an accurate representation of what it's like to be 25.
Mhm.
So you have this uh, limited way of perceiving life because you don't have this experience, which actually contaminates pretty much the way you see life at
Mhm.
later time. I mean, it's very beneficial because you have experience, you have shortcuts for a lot of things, but at the same time, you lose a big part of the innocence and the hopes you had when you were 25.
Mhm.
So it's a bit nostalgic, but I just don't see myself in those characters as much
Mhm.
anymore. And
Right.
I was so puzzled as to how they chose the wardrobe for
Oh,
those characters. Like the shoes
really?
she's wearing, they're probably very comfortable and everything, but the way this dress is cutting her ankles, it's 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 not flattering. It's not a good idea. It's not a good idea.
You are
I
so
didn't
funny.
understand that
That
part.
that is so funny. Oh my gosh, I'm laughing. No, I didn't even really think twice about the wardrobe because it's just so 90s and they're young and don't have much money. I mean, I think she's still a student.
Oh, she has. She has lots of money. Her father is a very successful
Oh.
architect.
Oh, I forgot about
Has
that.
money.
Okay. So, she's one of those rich girls that just wants to be
She doesn't
bohemian.
care, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess she doesn't care. No, she
Yeah,
has this
right.
very Alicia Silverstone vibe from the 90s, from the
Mhm.
Aerosmith
Oh
videos,
yeah,
which
the
I
video.
like. It's
Mhm.
just the cut of the dress and the socks and the shoes. It's just not very flattering on the ankles, and
Yeah.
someone should have seen that, I think.
Well, yeah, that's when I guess you have a male. Director. If it was us, we'd maybe be like, actually, hold on, before we roll, let's do something about that dress. That's
Try
so
these
funny.
on. Not as comfortable, but I think you're gonna look great in them. So let's just keep them on.
but I did appreciate how the camera does move more than I remembered. It's more than just kind of a two shot. There are times like when they're in the car, in the train, where the camera's turning, or especially in the sequel. Oh my gosh, I had forgotten when she takes him up at the end to her apartment. The camera is just spinning with them going up the steps, and it's sort of a remake of their silent not looking at each other in that music booth. It was really, yeah. I mean, so that was fun to see that kind of redone. So the camera does move.
This is the experience of your eye, because you are doing this for a long time now, and you're able to see and make a note of these things. They went right through my head.
Oh, that's funny. And maybe because I'm a filmmaker that I'm conscious of the camera, because I don't really have the camera move a ton in my short films, but this is reminding me I probably should. We should spend more time with the camera moving, because every now and then that really does add this another emotion, to what's already happening. So, yes.
But yeah, that's the difference. You're a filmmaker, and I'm like, those shoes, that dress.
Well, you're looking at the body. You're looking
a little bit,
right?
The proportions, yeah,
the proportions, the beauty, the style, the accessories, or in your designs, the lack of accessories. Thank you very much. Thank you, Linklater and Hawke and Delpy. What a trio for this amazing trio of movies. And thank you, Todor. This was awesome. We didn't get to see you. You did say you were going to be shirtless. This is close, so I like it. But I mean, fans.
I lied.
I know.
To get invited.
It's winter.
Yes,
it's winter. You gotta. You'll be freezing if you take that off.
I'm cheap. There's no heating in the apartment. That's why I'm hugging the dog all the time. Yeah. But I'm wearing like a white tank top, which is an homage
it's great.
to every main character in a horror movie. They
absolutely.
All wear
this. You're so right.
You're not allowed to star in a horror movie unless you fit in one of those.
Absolutely. You're giving me Ryan Phillippe, Freddie Prinze Jr., Chad Michael Murray, and House of Wax, right? You're wearing the uniform.
Eliza Dushku and
yes, exactly. And Wrong Turn. Oh yeah. And that's the story of Jesse and Celine. How romantique. Now I'm about to go rewatch Before Midnight and think of ways to continue this couple's story. Thank you all so much for listening or watching, and thank you to my wonderful, beautiful, thoughtful international guest, Todor Iliev. This was his first time being a podcast guest. What an honor to have him. Didn't he do a great job? And he's so pretty. I mean, how can he do any wrong, right? Check out his designs, also very pretty, at Iliev Illustration on Instagram. And thank you also to our cameos from Rudy and Jason. Spread the word about this podcast and spread the love, since it's a really crazy world out there. Thanks Straw Hat Media, Kyle Motzinger, Greg Clements, and Portland Media Center. Follow me on Instagram at Release Date Rewind if you're not already, to see more footage from this convo and from this movie, and to find out what the next movie will be on the show. Hint, hint, it's a February 80s movie set during detention. That's all for now. And in the words of Jesse and Celine,
Bye.
Goodbye.
Au revoir.
Later.